there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Scaryish.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And today's going to be a long episode, so you guys should strap your boots in, or strap your...
Just say strap on, you know you're going to say it.
Yeah, get on this boat, get on this whatever.
What fucking phrases are you even using?
It's 3 a.m., guys. It's 3 a.m. And I think our topics are nuts.
Yeah,
I mean,
just kind of like the preliminary discussion you do while you're writing your script definitely sounds like this one might be, well, long for sure, but controversial maybe? I don't know. We have a few organizations that may be after us after this one, so we'll see.
I literally told Adam, I was like, don't at me. Like, I can't even. I hope they don't come after me. It'll be fine. Anyway, yeah, so I guess I'm going to go first, and I'm going to get into my topic here.
Oh, we're not going to do the thing where we say what we're covering?
Oh, I am going to be covering a disappearance at the Vatican.
Right on. I'm going to be covering...
Obviously, it's going to be, like, nuts. Okay.
I'm going to be covering Lake Baical, so it should be very interesting to see the differences in our topics. But yeah, okay, let's just dive into yours. Like, this is going to be long, so let's do it. So before we get into Robin's topic, we're actually recording this after we just recorded it. After finishing it, we just want to preface it with, this is in no way, shape, or form us saying this is exactly what happened and we're not going after anyone. We are just bringing the story to you. So it's like one of those things where we're just letting you know as podcast hosts, as Robin put it.
We're just reading stuff on the internet. We're just sharing it with you guys. You guys can think whatever you folks want to think about it. But
we will give our thoughts. We'll be very explicit in what we say, but we're not saying this is exactly what happened
right.
And these are the people we hold accountable. Nothing like that.
No.
Robin did a ton of research on this, and she wants to bring as much detailed information to you as possible. That's not saying that she's an investigator or a private eye that flew over to Italy and is telling you, like, these are the definitive findings.
No, so. it's just this thing that you guys can look it up on the internet yourselves, too, if you guys want. So
just sit back and enjoy the tale of something crazy that happened in a very special, significant place. It's the best way I can put it. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Robin from the past now.
From the past. All right. So I'm sure many of you folks have seen movies like Angels and Demons, or at least have heard of the Vatican City in general. Da Vinci Code. Da Vinci Code. No, well, was the Vatican a part of the Da Vinci Code?
No, saying.
It's just Angels and Demons, right? Which is funny because I was watching a news video, like an ABC News video, and they were playing scenes from Angels and Demons in their news video report. And I was just like, what are you doing? It was just so awkward to watch this movie clip of them like talking about this disappearance. It was just really weird. Anyway, so Vatican City is the seat of the Roman Catholic Church. This place is arguably one of the holiest of holy places. I mean, if you're into that.
It's inside of Italy, but it's a separate nation unto itself, correct?
Yes. And you'd imagine it would be safer than any other kind of location to travel, since it's like this mecca of religious...
Mecca is a religious place.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's very similar to the Vatican City, in fact. Shut
up. Anyway... Yeah, it's home to a lot of cathedrals, a lot of chapels, museums. You'll be surprised to know that it is home to a lot of unsolved crime, even though it's this ridiculously hyped up area.
I'm very curious to know what sort of like policing they have in Vatican City.
I saw a lot of videos that show what their police officers and stuff look like, but it seems like they're very intimidating looking.
So you don't know the jurisdictions or
I
anything
don't know their
like
jurisdiction or anything. They just look real intimidating.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no place is really safe from acts of evil. Crime happens everywhere. It doesn't matter really where you go. If you haven't heard of Vatican City before, here's a little bit of a quick rundown. It's officially called the Vatican City State. It's its own entity. It's a walled enclave within the city of Rome, Italy. And I want to say it's kind of like Washington, D.C., how Washington, D.C. is its own little state in the middle of all the other states.
I guess. It's not walled off, but yeah.
I'm really bad at geography. I don't know.
She confuses Ohio and Utah a lot, so.
No, not anymore. Because...
we went to Utah?
Yeah, and Ohio. But yeah, so... not recently, obviously, not during COVID times. This is before, it was during the before 4. But Yeah, I just imagine that's similar to how the Vatican is, where it's in Rome, but it's its own thing. And it is the world's smallest independent state in terms of area and population. It's where the seat of the Pope is, and is one of the most important places in Roman Catholicism, which is kind of a gimme since it's the head of the Catholic Church. Not to mention, crazy popular tourist destination. I've watched Angels and Demons 1,000,001 times, not literally. And even I want to go one day. I'm not at all religious, but it just seems like such an interesting place to travel to and visit, to see all the different monuments, the cathedrals, all that stuff. I think it would be really cool to see.
There's lots of history there, obviously.
Yeah, it's home to places like the Sistine Chapel, which even if you know nothing of history, you probably have heard of that.
Hopefully
at one place
you don't
or
pronounce it the 16th Chapel. Because I've heard people say that
Shut
in
up.
Conversation before. And
No,
been
they
like,
have not.
Oh, I swear to God, I have.
Oh my Lord, have mercy.
Been like, no.
Okay. All right. So on to the true crime part of it. One of the most well-known disappearances that have occurred within Vatican City is that of a 15-year-old named Emanuela Orlandi. And it occurred in 1983, so it's quite a while ago. She was actually the daughter of a Vatican employee. They were a lay official whose job it is to kind of schedule and organize all of the papal functions. So that's kind of a big role with the Vatican.
Like an event coordinator for the Pope.
Emanuela was obviously a citizen of Vatican City, but she attended high school and classes like that in Rome. Because, you're in Rome. On June 22nd, 1983, she was late for a music class that she actually attended 3 times a week. So she had this music class at a different music school she attended 3 times a week in Rome.
Gotcha.
Her sister was worried on that day and reported that she'd received a call from Emanuela saying that she was late because she had an appointment to meet with an Avon Cosmetics representative about a job to sell their cosmetics. I did not know that they sold Avon in other places that wasn't America. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, Avon was sold lots of places as far as I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Supposedly she met with this representative before her class, and after the meeting, told her friend about it. And she left her friend, climbed into a dark green BMW at a bus stop. After that, she is never seen or heard from again.
So is this black, green BMW, whatever it was, dark green BMW, is that a cab she was getting into or just like a stranger's car?
They just say it's a dark green BMW, and that lead goes nowhere, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that sucks.
Her parents were concerned that she didn't come home after her class. When they contacted the authorities, they were told that she'd probably gone off with some friends. Because she was 15, she's a teenager. It's just something teenagers did.
It is very annoying when the authorities just make assumptions based off of your child.
Right.
And it's based off 100% of their age and nothing that has to do with their normal behavior pattern.
It's really annoying when they're like, we can't do anything until 24 hours have passed.
Being a true crime buff, and I'm not the biggest true crime buff, but the thing that's always really, really annoyed me about what I've heard most frequently when it comes to missing children is, in the first 24 hours, you hear like, oh, there's just nothing we can do for the first X amount of time.
And then you have a show called 24 that's like everything
in the first 24 hours is critical.
Yes.
After X amount of time, we're just recovering a body. We're not even looking for a living person. It's like,
crazy.
How in the fuck do those two things coexist everywhere?
Right.
Like, that blows my mind.
Yeah. So, next day comes around. She still hasn't come home yet. Her parents then contact the director of the music school and ask for any information. And they're informed that she never showed up to class. She never showed up for her lesson. They had no idea where she could possibly be. So like many parents, they immediately go into panic mode. They place ads in several papers, hoping that anyone could give any information on where she might be. They even include their phone numbers in the ads, which I don't know if they had hotlines or something back then they could have done instead, but they gave their personal phone number for any information. After the ads go out, they start receiving strange phone calls. So these phone calls are from a number of different people, all having completely different accents, which sounds like what my sister did when we were trying to get the BB-8 toys one year.
We were trying to get a toy that was supposed to be rare that wound up being everywhere.
Right.
But yeah, Liz called around to all these different stores using different accents because I think she was calling the same store repeatedly because they were going to get a shipment in.
So my sister kept calling, and one time it was like an English accent, and one time it was like, oh my gosh, I was just laughing.
Her voice still kind of sounds the same too, and I was just like, those employees totally know it's you.
But it was fun. We ended up being able to pick up the BB-8 and then, played with our dogs with it. It was great. Anyway, they get all these calls, different accents. The first one was on June 25th, so 3 days after her initial disappearance, and the caller identifies themselves as a 16-year-old boy named Pierluigi. And he tells them that he'd been with his fiancée at the Piazza Navona when they met the missing girl. And I don't know about you, but a 16-year-old saying that they have a fiancé is like a weird thing for me. When I was 16, I wasn't like in that mindset of I'm going to get married.
It could be a cultural thing too.
Maybe. Or he just met his girlfriend or something like that. Who knows? But he claimed that this girl had introduced herself as Barbarella and had said that she had run away from home after selling Avon cosmetics. The parents thought the call was too strange, but this person kind of knew a lot about her, down to the fact that she was carrying a flute with her, and the glasses that she was wearing. He even said that she claimed to not like her glasses, something that was true about her. She didn't like her glasses. They described her haircut. They described a lot of things about her. But that's a lot to spout at someone on the phone. Like, it's all these facts, a lot of facts that don't necessarily help in finding her. It's just you saying, I know all these things about her, and make me think they have her. You know what I mean? Which is creepy. And I just feel like they're trying to set up a story, taking the attention away from what actually happened.
So they're just saying they bumped into her at this location, and these are all the things that she said.
Yes.
Okay, that is really, really weird.
I think it's like making up a story and trying to get the attention away from the actual real events. But that's just me. On June 28th, someone named Mario called, which is funny because the first person's named Luigi, the second one's named Mario. It's just, what the I'm like, why?
I mean, it is Italy, so.
So he claimed to be the owner of a bar near the music school. Apparently, they had a new customer come in, one that fit the description of Emanuela. And this girl, though, introduced herself again as Barbara. So
first time was Barbarella,
yes.
Right? And this time it's Barbara?
Yes.
So it's like she's trying out new names.
I don't know. According to Mario, this Barbara person had told him that she had run away from home but planned to return for her sister's wedding. These tips are really creepy, really strange. The fact that the first one was like Barbarella, this one's Barbara, and that she keeps saying that she's running away. I just think that they're trying to put into the mindset of
they ran away.
Yes, but they didn't actually run away.
I was like, who walks around town, starts introducing themselves, saying like, I'm running away from home? Like,
yeah, no
runaway says that.
Man.
No runaway wants someone to think that they're a runaway, ever.
So her parents were obviously desperate to find their daughter. They had posters of her all over the city. Apparently even the Pope himself came forward on a number of occasions asking those responsible to come forward or to just let her go. Calls started getting more frequent and more menacing. It's like the person was making this family's trauma and their fear into a kind of joke, or, starting to take them down this line of, I don't know, thought that's completely different than what's actually happening.
It's crazy that the Pope himself came forward on
because
this too.
They're an employee of the Vatican.
Right.
All right. So there was a series of calls that were saying she had been captured by terrorists to be used in exchange for the release of a Turkish man named Mehmet Ali Agca. I obviously don't know how to pronounce the name exactly or correctly. I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to keep going and I'm going to not say that name again. So, This person had been detained after attempting to assassinate Pope John Paul II at St. Peter's Square in 1981. So they're saying this terrorist organization got your kid because we want to exchange her for this, assassin, I guess he would be, right? Because he tried to assassinate the Pope. Then there was a caller who seemed to have an American accent, only being known as the American. And this caller apparently sounded eloquent. Not sure what type of eloquent they meant when they were describing the fact that this person was eloquent. But they suggested that an exchange for this Turkish man could be made and demanded that the negotiation be approved by the Pope himself and carried out within 20 days. This American was persuasive. He even produced a recording of a voice that sounded similar to that of Emanuela. So how does he have that? You know what I mean?
Right.
He claimed to be able to offer more evidence, like photocopies of her school ID, music sheets that she was studying, or even a handwritten note by her. He claimed that the first two callers, Pierluigi and Mario, were all part of the same terrorist organization involved in the kidnapping. This American caller called a total of 16 times, all of which were traced to public telephone booths. It's just really weird. The whole thing just seems real strange.
I mean, it really does sound like they took her hostage for like some nefarious purpose.
All these leads turn up dead ends when there isn't any evidence found linking the kidnapping to the attempt on the Pope's life. So all this stuff doesn't connect together.
I mean, they're literally saying it's connected.
I know.
It just sounds like they don't want to let this guy out.
But they're saying there's no evidence too. You know what I mean?
The evidence is the kidnapper calling on the phone saying, "We kidnapped this person for this exact
is the Vatican.
Reason."
They're so powerful. They are so powerful. On July 8th, the family receives another call. At this point, I can't even imagine how the family feels, how all of them are probably just desperate, trying to figure out what's going on. These horrible calls and their daughter missing, it's just, I would go nuts. It's absolutely terrifying. This time, the call comes from someone with a seemingly Middle Eastern accent. So this man claims to have the girl and that he plans to kill her if their demands are not met. They demand the release of that Turkish prisoner within 20 days. Again, keeping consistent with the rules that they've set forth. They're like, we want this done in 20 days. They didn't give the Vatican doesn't take these calls seriously, doesn't give in to the demands. And so here we are today. It's still a mystery almost 40 years later. Any supposed tips haven't led to any substantial leads. It's all just dead ends. Of course, there are theories of what may have happened to her. They range from something that could be plausible to downright out of this world strange. Each has bits and pieces of truth to them that make you think like any of it could be the real reason, and it's terrifying. All right, so
just before we dive into these, to be clear, the girl disappears, the calls come in, the callers eventually state we took her because we want this specific person released.
Yeah.
They repeat that demand. They give a time frame. The time frame is not met, and the police are unable to determine where the girl is.
Yep.
And so they don't meet the demand. She's never given back. And now we're about to get into the possible explanations of what happened.
Yeah.
I feel like this one's fairly straightforward in the fact that it was we don't negotiate with terrorists and it costs a young girl her life.
Yeah.
So we'll see what these theories have in store.
So one of these theories, obviously, is that main one where she is indeed kidnapped, like the strange calls have said, and is held in exchange for the release of this prisoner. As her parents held a pretty important position within the Vatican, I can understand the assumption that if they kidnap her, she could be a big enough piece of leverage for them to let that prisoner go. This Turkish guy, he's an ultra-nationalist, part of a neo-fascist youth group. called the Grey Wolves. This is known because he said so himself in interviews. So while he's in custody, he's doing interviews with these Italian news.
I'm sure everyone wanted to talk to this guy who tried to kill the Pope.
Yeah, apparently in these interviews, he claims that Emanuela is taken by that group and that she's been moved to a cloistered convent where she's still alive. But of course, there's no evidence to back it up. He continues to make these claims until recent years, and I really mean recently because there have been updates as recently as 2019 on the case, or that people are still talking about it. Anyway, in 2006, he publishes a letter claiming that Emanuela was taken along with another girl that same year named Mirella Gregory, and they had both been abducted by these Grey Wolves in exchange for his release, and that both of them had been brought to an unspecified quote-unquote royal palace in Liechtenstein. He was released from prison in 2010, after which he, of course, gave interviews still making strange claims. One of these strange claims is that he was actually hired by the Vatican to assassinate the Pope. He also claims that Emanuela was being kept prisoner by the Vatican at a Catholic monastery as a nun in a Central European country.
So, as far as the getting hired by the Vatican thing, I do find it interesting that very, very frequently the popes are denounced as heretics by people within the church themselves.
Yeah.
It happens a lot, basically when there's any sort of political clash where they don't agree on like pronouncements or essentially how the church should be led. They establish some sort of petition that states that the Pope is a heretic. And it's happened with, I'm pretty sure, John Paul II here. And I know it's happened with our current Pope, or the current Pope, depending on your
our
religious
current
persuasion.
Pope Francis, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that happens. And I wonder what lengths certain groups would go to if they're not getting their way with the Pope to see what would happen, because that's quite a bold claim to say in 2010, like 30 years after the fact, like, actually, I was hired by the Vatican to get rid of the Pope.
I bet a bunch of people have connections. Okay, Vatican, don't at me, but I bet a bunch of people have their fingers in the Vatican pie, and that they have, like, you know what I mean? Like, they have control in there, and they get the Vatican to do whatever they want.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by some people. Like, are you saying there's, like, some shadow government in
Yeah,
there?
I think there's
I think it just
be.
has... I think if there's anything about a conspiracy theory like that, it's people within the Vatican, like people within the Catholic Church, who are all vying for positions of power, versus, like, someone who's outside of the Catholic Church
we'll get
that's
there.
just, like, pulling strings.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I figured that had something to do with some ridiculous theory you're about to tell us all.
All right. So anyway, so he's like, I was hired to assassinate the Pope. They actually have her. These claims have never been backed by any amount of evidence. People just put this guy off as some crazy dude. But I've watched Angels and Demons. And
So she's an expert, y'all.
who knows how deep the conspiracy lies, you know? It's nuts. All right. Other theories involve the Vatican being behind the disappearance themselves, or at least made it difficult for investigators to do their job on purpose. Theory is that she was kidnapped under the orders of an archbishop at the time, Paul Marcinkus.
They have a name they're calling out here. Wow.
Yeah, he apparently ran the Vatican's bank. There was evidence that Emanuela's father had uncovered some criminal activity perpetrated by this archbishop, and he apparently avoided answering any questions on the matter up until his death in 2006. So that whole time he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to answer any questions. That's just fuck off. And then he dies. And so you never know. You never know. In 2011, Antonio Mancini, a member of the Italian crime syndicate, the Banda della Magliana, claimed that the mafia actually kidnapped her. They did so to try to get the Vatican to pay them back for money that the Vatican had borrowed from this crime syndicate. This story involves the death of a banker named Roberto Calvey, also known as quote-unquote God's banker.
Wow.
Because of his connections to the Vatican. He was found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge in London in June of 1982. That's only a year before Emanuela disappeared. Okay. His pockets were stuffed with cash and gems. This supposedly had to do with some failed money laundering or something like that.
Too much starch.
Too much
Not enough fabric softener.
Oh my God. In 2005, there was a call to an Italian crime show called Who Has Seen? ? And the call suggested that there was a secret to solving the case in the tomb of an infamous gangster named Enrico de Pedi. He allegedly killed the girl as a favor to the Vicar General of Rome at the time. And this was made credible when his girlfriend came forward and admitted that he had told her he killed Emanuela.
Well, all these people are admitting all these different things. And the thing is, not everyone could have done this crime.
But it's like no one's taking it seriously. No one's taking any of this stuff. People are just like, yeah, no, they're crazy. None of this is true. You know what I mean? The Vatican's like, nah, they're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So he was gunned down by a rival gang in 1990. So after the call in 2005 on that Italian crime show, they believed that his tomb might actually hold her body. His tomb was close to the center of Rome in a sacred burial site mostly reserved for the most senior and prestigious of church officials. So people are like...
Weird spot to bury a known criminal.
Someone known to be a criminal perpetrating such horrible crimes. It's kind of blasphemous to think that they would put him in this cemetery, this tomb area. And he actually had his burial sanctioned. They actually were like, it's good. We're going to put him there. That's nuts. Apparently, he repented for his crimes while in prison and made large donations to the church.
There you go.
Which kind of makes me lean towards that conspiracy too. So like I was saying, there's people that have control over the church somehow. I don't know.
I think we found the conspiracy of how he got that burial plot. I don't know if we've solved the mystery of the missing girl.
It's just crazy that I'm just saying there's a lot of ways that people have their hand in the church or control certain things within the church. Money's a big thing. If you got money...
Okay. Robin firing a lot of shots across the bow right now.
That's why I'm like, Vatican, don't at me. It's just nuts. It's crazy, okay? I just think all of this is just insane. All right. So the Vatican pushed the attempts to open the tomb for years. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. And I think they push it off for 7 years, during which people start coming out saying that members of the Vatican did have hands in the conspiracy. So this gangster's girlfriend comes out and says that the Archbishop Paul did hire the gangster. Seriously, the whole thing screams cover up to me, but that's just me. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is all just sad, but I'm screaming conspiracy. Anyway, when the tomb was finally open, people expected to find her next to this gangster guy, or that his body wouldn't even be there, you know? Apparently his name was put on his tomb in 12,000 pounds worth of diamonds. 12,000 pounds as in money. Not weight.
I was going to say the currency. Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money.
Can you imagine 12,000 pounds of
that's
diamonds?
That's a lot of fucking diamonds.
Like, that would be insane.
They don't measure diamonds, and they measure it in carats. Oh, okay. But yeah, that's a lot of diamonds. And he was inside when they opened the tomb. It was his body that was inside. He was dressed in a dark suit, dark tie, remarkably good condition.
Holding his ID and a sign that said, I'm me.
But he was alone. I mean, he was surrounded by 200 boxes of other assorted unidentified human remains, but he was the only full skeleton in there.
Okay.
She wasn't in there.
She wasn't in his particular burial site.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The bones that were surrounding him were investigated and analyzed, but they are kind of inconclusive right now, so no one really knows. What's even more weird, 2012 brought forth one of the Catholic Church's top exorcists. Yeah, one of their top exorcists. I see your face. Your face is like, I didn't think that was a real thing. I didn't think
you didn't think Catholic Church has exorcists?
But it's like...
I've fucking covered so many exorcisms on this show.
But the thing is, they aren't as often sanctioned anymore. So I'm like, they still have though? You know what I mean? It's crazy. So this guy... Gabriel Amorth claims to have overseen thousands of exorcisms and has said that she was kidnapped in order to be used in Vatican sex parties.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the exorcist says that she was kidnapped to be used in Vatican sex parties.
Yes, which is fucked up, to say the least.
No shit.
The Vatican has refused to answer to these claims, which I believe. I believe they're like, we're not, no. You know what I mean?
No comment type.
Yeah.
It's just, this is getting way out of hand now.
Right? Right?
Wildly out of hand.
All right, so this guy was ordained in 1954, so he's been around a long time, and he's been around the church a long time, and so I'm sure he's seen some shit. But they claim that these sex parties include members of an unspecified country's foreign embassy, and I'm dying to know which foreign country it is. But, okay, so this is a quote from him. It has already previously been stated by the deceased Monsignor Simeon Duca, an archivist at the Vatican who was asked to recruit girls for parties with the help of the Vatican. I believe Emanuela ended up in this circle. I have never believed in the international theory of overseas kidnappers. I have motives to believe that this was just a case of sexual exploitation.
Wow.
He is much older. Who knows? Maybe he's just crazy, but he's been around the church for a really long time. That being said, I can totally see the embassy making up a ridiculously crazy terrorist plot idea to take the attention off of themselves. But this exorcist has said some crazy shit in the past. He once stated that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin were both possessed by the devil.
A lot of people have said that based off of their actions.
Right. He claims that Pope Pius XII had attempted a long-distance exorcism of Adolf Hitler.
I think that actually makes sense.
What?
Like, if you see someone trying to take over the world through, like, ridiculously awful means, like, it's like, oh, maybe there's something I can do but not have to be right there. I'm not saying that this isn't batshit crazy. This whole fucking thing is crazy, without a doubt. But I'm just saying that this is something where it's like, okay, well, yeah, I suppose I could see that. If people thought when Hitler was around, like, he seems like the devil.
Yeah.
Then who else would be better to perform a long-distance exorcism than the Pope? Precisely.
All right, so the bigger thing here, he claims
Oh, God.
that the entire work of Harry Potter and all those books is the work of the devil.
That's something that's been said very, very frequently by a lot of people, so.
I just think it's funny.
I think it's funny that people complain about cancel culture when growing up I had to hear about how Harry Potter was a demon. It's like, okay, that didn't just start. People have been batshit crazy and angry about the stupidest things for a long time.
A lot of people don't want to believe this exorcist. But you never know. Maybe he's telling the truth and they just want to make him sound like he's crazy.
Wouldn't it suck if at some point in your life you have some sort of significant event that you need people to trust your credibility for, and then everyone goes through and drags up any of the crazy stuff you've said throughout your life?
Yeah.
I've said crazy stuff in my life. I've said things like, I want King Kong to win. I've said things like, Pepsi's better than Coke. Things that just undercut your credibility. And for this guy, obviously, he said some crazy shit too.
You know what's funny is my coworker today was just like, I want Godzilla to win.
Everyone wants Godzilla to win.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this guy's credibility is just like shot, right? Over the years, different theories and physical evidence has come up. One of these things is a skull that appeared May 14th, 2001. The skull was found in a confessional in the Gregory VII Church near the Vatican. This skull, though, wasn't Emanuela's, so why are these body parts? It's like they opened up that one guy's tomb, bunch of bones.
Why is this related?
Because it's, why did this thing show up near the Vatican? So they immediately are like, why is the skull there? We're going to investigate, figure out what it is, and then they do the analysis and it's not hers. It's just any little thing that comes up, they think it's
tied in or somehow related.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There were supposed sightings of her over time in different places, but none of it led to any good leads. In 2013, when Pope Francis took over, her brother, Pietro, met the Pope briefly. Upon this meeting, the Pope told him, quote-unquote, Emanuela is in heaven. Pietro said that it, quote, froze my blood to hear a Pope say Emanuela is dead, end quote. the fact that he comes in, brand new pope's like, hey, just going to tell you.
Just want you to know.
She's in heaven.
He's gone off script a lot that's gotten him in trouble just to say things that he thought were the right thing to say.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, there was someone who asked, there's this little kid who asked him at one point. I mean, this is super, like, religious, which we really don't get into on the show a lot, but there was a little kid that asked the current pope whether or not his father would be in heaven because his father was not a Catholic. And his father didn't practice. And he had the kid come up so he could tell him, like, yes, of course your father's in heaven.
Oh.
And people were so fucking mad at him for comforting this little kid. And it was just like, he said that, and it's unclear whether or not a different pope in a different time would have ever said something like that to that kid.
Like, who would tell this little kid, like, nah, he's in hell, bro?
But yeah.
Like, who fucking, no
but
one.
Like, this guy saying, like, especially when he had first come on, letting this person know, like, hey, your sister's in heaven.
It's just sad because it's, like, making them feel like, oh, she's dead. She's not actually, there's no way we're ever going to find her. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's sad.
I think he was probably trying to, like, give this person some closure without having to make some form of a public statement.
Yeah. So in 2019, Vatican investigators opened the tombs of two 19th century princesses in a cemetery near St. Peter's Basilica after an anonymous tip, only to find that these tombs are completely empty. Someone had mailed the family a letter with a photo of an angel above a tomb in the Vatican's Teutonic Cemetery, a cemetery reserved for German-speaking priests, believers, things like that. The cemetery is hidden behind high walls, and glimpses of it are only offered through gaps in an ornate metal gate area. The letter said to, quote, look where the angel is pointing, end quote.
This is some angels and demon shit.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Now I understand why you kept yelling that.
Oh my god. The Vatican suggests that the bones were just moved during construction work on the cemetery. There was evidence, though, that the tomb may have been opened recently. And on top of that, there was evidence that unidentified visitors made frequent visits to this tomb as flowers were left behind at the site on occasion. So, 2 days after that initial dig where they find that there's nobody in there, 2 more sets of bones were found near the tomb, somewhere nearby. It's like they open the tomb, then you climb down. It's a big cavern.
Right. There's
nobody in there, but I guess near where they should have been was these 2 sets of skeletons or something. And I was like, before I kept reading, I was like, oh my gosh, is it the 2 missing girls? Because it was Emanuela and then supposedly another girl.
Right.
So in 2020, it was reported that they were at least 100 years old. So it wasn't them, unfortunately. So that closed that leg of the investigation. The Vatican allowed the family to do more analysis on the fragments, though, if they like. The family noted how odd it was that the Vatican was finally cooperating quickly on this, as they normally refused to help or put things off for years. And it led to the belief that they already knew that that tomb would be empty.
Yeah.
And that's why they were like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want. So there are so many moments of hope for this family that just kind of get dashed, though they haven't stopped hoping to find out what happened to her. Her brother, Pietro, now has just completely white hair because it's been almost 40 years.
Wow.
Showing how long that this whole thing's been going on, and still pursues every avenue that they can to kind of figure things out. It's still a mystery to this day. Lots of people just say that all roads kind of lead to the Vatican, which is terrifying. We just kind of need a Robert Langdon all up in here
I was waiting for it
to kind of figure it out, because it's all these theories involve the Vatican, and it's really creepy, and it just makes me think that there's some sort of cover up, considering the Vatican doesn't want to help with most of the things, and then this one thing they're like, hey, no, yeah, go for it, go dig that shit up, no big deal. And it's like it makes you think
there's
they
also
already
like
knew.
Change of leadership, you know, like you mentioned, the new pope took over in 2013. Things changed like a little bit. He did state this thing to Pietro, and it just sounds like there's certain avenues where they're like, yeah, go ahead and investigate. What I think based off of that is essentially whatever might provide the family peace, but not expose the church in a negative light, is something that they're, at this point, willing to be like, sure, like, we'll just let that happen. But yeah, this is definitely a...
Isn't it crazy?
It's just a crazy topic, man.
It's like conspiracy theory, just crazy.
Realistically, this comes down to, in my opinion, is that what sounds like happened, the most likely scenario is that the Vatican had the exact thing that happened, that went down, go down, where they're saying, like, we want this prisoner released, this prisoner that tried to kill the Pope, and we're holding this girl hostage to do it. And they were just like, no, like, we're not going to do that.
And they don't want to be held accountable.
And they don't want the publicity of, like, we let a little girl die because we weren't willing to negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
Because back in the 80s, there was this huge dick measuring thing of, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And everyone used to say it. It's fucking like the crux of the movie Air Force One, if you've never seen it.
I love that.
It's like how far you're willing to go and how far you're willing to say you don't negotiate with terrorists. And I think the idea that a little girl's life is more important than letting a prisoner go is just such a controversial topic that rather than have this come out and come to light, that they're just like, no, we're just going to say that we don't know what happened. Like, they said this, we investigated it, we decided that it didn't make any sense, and then all of a sudden we stopped getting phone calls once the deadline passed. And then it wouldn't shock me if small bits and pieces of the truth started to spill out, like who was involved in the kidnapping, like who actually performed the kidnapping, who like part of the criminal ring was, like, those pieces start to leak out. And then obviously, like, some of the lines connect. You're not exactly sure how. Yeah. But the more that the church seems like it's involved, the more it just seems awful and suspicious. Yeah. So it's definitely batshit crazy.
It's crazy. It's really sad.
I kind of still hope the Pope listens to our show. I don't think he does. It's not in Italian.
Does he only speak Italian?
He speaks many languages.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
okay.
But yeah, I just don't know about this one, man. Like, this just seems, like you mentioned, like your last paragraph really sums up, like, all roads seem to point to the Vatican.
Yeah. But I think I do believe, like, how you're thinking, where it's just, they decided not to do anything about it, and this person probably died, and there's nothing that they can do about it because they were like, we're not going to release this prisoner. Sorry.
Right. Sounds awful either way.
Yeah, it sounds
no matter
what.
Like, what would happen if they would have released the prisoner and then she never came back anyways? You know, and I think that's usually the biggest fear when it comes to negotiations is, will this person that's willing to do awful things somehow honor the agreement when they hold all the cards? You know? So, yeah, very interesting, very controversial. Yeah. So we'll see what ats we get. Like,
don't at me. I'm just reading stuff on the internet,
guys.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to, I'm just saying, like, if the account like at God ats us, you know, then we'll like look into that. But other than that,
I just thought it was interesting.
We're relaying the tale to you.
Yes. And I just think it's fun conspiracy stuff to just like throw stuff around, not necessarily that this is how it is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
This is just us being podcast hosts. We're just reading stuff on the internet. Okay.
What we often say, especially when it comes to stories that we're reading, like for story time or things like that, is that it's not up to us to judge. Our job is to bring the information to you so that you can judge it. So that is definitely in full blown effect right here. Don't at us.
Yeah.
All right. So good stuff, Rob. That was excellent. It's the longest script you have ever written.
Mm-hmm.
So before we move on into my topic, we are going to take a quick commercial break. And we are back. So, okay, that was super fun, lighthearted topic. Robin, let's go ahead and move into this next one. This week, I sincerely had the dread set in on me that I was not going to find a topic. We've been doing this show for 3.5 years. We've covered a lot of stuff. I know there's a million stories out there. Realistically, we could probably keep going for a very long time, but doesn't change the fact that when it's record day and you're doing your research, sometimes that dread does set in. I hit 2 dead ends during research tonight where there just wasn't a lot of what I was researching, no matter how many people repeated the same information on the internet, seeing the same stuff quoted over and over. And it's really a tough feeling to start over, especially when you're doing your script on record night. I won't lie to you folks. And I kept my frustration in check though. And I got up to just go to the restroom and pee out the anger because that's just the best thing you can do. And so I just closed my eyes and trusted my aim and shook my head and just thought, I'm going to find something.
Jesus Christ.
So, no, the one on my shoulders. So,
like, what?
The craziest thing, though, is that when I opened my eyes, it was so dark. I was sure I had turned the lights on when I went to the bathroom. Sure, I go to the bathroom in the dark sometimes in the middle of the night, but I don't do that when I'm like awake. The other thing I realized very quickly is that I was holding my breath. My movements were all like slowed as if I had walked into a Zack Snyder movie, but without the ridiculous music in the background.
God, I hate you. Okay.
I realized as I tried to whip around to move towards the door that I wasn't in slow motion. I was underwater. And there was a light source that I couldn't identify. Like the way you can kind of see in the dark in a dream, like you can still see stuff in a dream. And I started to panic. And I saw this light source that was like not in my head. It was in the distance. And it started to move towards me. And I started to have flashbacks to when I was a child and I almost drowned. And I was shocked that my lungs hadn't started to ache yet, but my attention was fixated on this glowing light coming towards me. You should see how annoyed Robin is right now. It's glorious. I was worried that if some huge, like, angler fish was swimming through the water, it was going to come eat me and that was the light coming towards me. But as it got closer, I could make out a silhouette of this creature that the light was emanating from, and it seemed human or humanoid. It had like arms and legs and a head, a very similar silhouette that I'd seen before. It came to a point where it was around 10 feet in front of me. And I appreciated that because, you know, social distancing. I also appreciated it because it was at this point I realized that this thing was, while humanoid, not human. It seemed to be over 9 feet tall, kind of like that vampire lady that the internet got a boner for from Resident Evil 8. So I had a voice ring out in my head that said, "Seek us out."
What?
And then the light slowly began to fade. And at this point, my lungs were on fire. And I clenched my eyes so tight from the pain, struggling to hold in my breath. But finally, I just let out this breath that I could no longer hold. And as I inhaled, expecting to just have water rush into my lungs and my stomach, I felt air fill my lungs. And I was just standing in the bathroom again. I opened my eyes and there I was. Light was on, dick was in my hand, and it was just as I had been when I left, except I had peed everywhere, so.
I'm not cleaning that shit up.
Not really. The rest of it is totally true. I didn't pee everywhere, but the rest of it definitely happened. Wink.
I was gonna say, like, no. You did pee everywhere. I'm not cleaning that shit.
I did not. I walked back to my keyboard and I typed in words I didn't even know I had in my brain, and those words were Lake Baical. So yeah, my topic is Lake Baical. And spoilers, some crazy shit happened there. You might want to put on a helmet because this shit's about to blow your mind.
Wait, how would the helmet help with you blowing their mind?
It's from Robot Chicken. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's the episode where they go on a Cribs tour of Richie Rich's house. So, one thing I'd like to note about Lake Baical. I listened to 6 different pronunciation sites and YouTube videos from the local region in English so that I could get the pronunciation right. I actually do this quite often with a lot of things in my script. We both do, in fact. So if you're from the region and would like to correct my pronunciation, go for it. We do speak different languages. That said, if you're not from the region and you're just going to correct me because you heard it said somewhere differently, just shove it up your ass. I don't want to hear it. So seriously though, we get corrections sometimes that are wrong, and that shit is so annoying. So what region am I referring to in this little mini rant? Well, Southern Siberia, of course. I think last episode, actually, we talked about how something named a lake can vary in size. Because I grew up around the Great Lakes, the idea I have in my head when I hear the word lake is different than other folks who might not have grown up around such large lakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I hear a lake, I don't think it's something that I can just cross in a few minutes or see the other side of. To me, that's more of a pond. Like, that's just how it's always been in my head. Lake Baical is not one of those small lakes. And here's some statistics that I didn't know about it, and I found absolutely fascinating. And these are 100% true, okay? So if you're judging based on surface area, just the area that you'd see on the map, basically, it's the 7th largest lake in the world. It's about 400 miles by 50 miles. It's like long and thin, but it's the 7th largest lake in the world. It's a big boy.
That's not enough to be an ocean?
No.
Wow.
Oceans are very different. And it's also,
or a sea?
It's also about their basins.
Oh, gotcha.
It's bigger in surface area than 2 of the Great Lakes. Those 2 are Erie and Ontario. Some other notable things about Lake Baical is it's one of the world's clearest lakes, according to geology.com. So this water that you can see through has some of the farthest visibility, which is just incredible. It's the world's oldest lake.
What?
Yeah, this lake is estimated to be around 30 million years old, which is fucking nuts. Or as Robin says, fuck nuts, because that's her new catchphrase.
Yeah, it is.
For comparison's sake, for my folks back home, the Great Lakes are estimated to be between 20,000 and 3,000 years old. So not millions, just years. Like the temperature started to warm in the 20,000 years ago. And that's what started to form the Great Lakes. Around 3,000 years ago, they had taken the shape that we know them as today. This lake is 30 million years old. It's been around for a very, very, very long time. Despite it only being the 7th largest lake based off of surface area, what you see on the map, it contains more water than all of the Great Lakes combined.
Because it's
which
so
is
deep?
fucking nuts, because 3 of them have more surface area. It's the largest freshwater lake in the world. In fact, the only quote-unquote lake that holds more water than it is the Caspian Sea, which is saltwater. Caspian Sea is weird because its basin is half and half. It can be considered a lake or a sea or an ocean if they wanted to. They call it a lake technically. So you know what that means. Robin actually already said it out loud. If it's the 7th biggest in surface area, but it holds the most water, it shouldn't surprise you to find out that Lake Baikal is the deepest lake in the world. It's 5,387 feet deep. That's over a mile deep.
I was going to say, yeah.
That is scary deep. One of the things I find the most terrifying about the ocean is its depth, because who the hell knows what's going on down there? I watched this terrifying documentary this weekend. It's called The Little Mermaid, and it's crazy to think how many songs we don't hear because they're underwater. There's this whole society down there. Don't watch it. It will give you nightmares. So why am I talking about Lake Baikal? Well, our story starts out in 1959. And I'll tell you this, folks, okay? A lot of what I'm about to tell you does not have official record, primarily because it came from the USSR.
Whoa.
And then once the USSR had fallen, it came from Russia, which is not the most forthcoming country when it comes to official accounts of crazy fucking shit. So let's go ahead and move forward, though. 1959, a new model aircraft had just come out in the USSR. It's a twin-jet Soviet airliner, and this model was flying over Lake Baikal. The citizens who lived around the lake, as well as those on the actual lake, either fishing for recreation or for profession, spotted this aircraft flying overhead, and they noticed it was rapidly descending. I should note before I continue that although there were significant amounts of witnesses, like hundreds to thousands, there was never an official report filed on this plane, which is very much believed to actually have crashed. So, spoiler alert, the aircraft continued its rapid descent before crashing into the southern waters of Lake Baikal and breaking apart. No survivors were recovered. Most of the wreckage actually sank. It's a pretty horrific event to take place, but that is not what made this so notorious. According to the internet and anonymous witnesses, the plane's captain stated in his final moments to the air traffic control tower that was nearest by, before the plane crashed, that he had observed an unidentified flying object moving in the sky above the lake aggressively towards his aircraft. It is stated that everyone in that air traffic control tower that heard this was told by military personnel to keep their fucking mouths shut.
What?
And had to sign an NDA that if they spoke of this at all,
They would get killed?
no, they would basically be thrown in jail for the rest of their life.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, basically, same thing, right? So,
Take him to the gulag.
right? The witnesses stated they saw the Tu-104 aircraft, which is the aircraft specifically for my aircraft nerds out there, descending while being chased by what they said appeared to be a flying saucer. The witnesses almost unanimously stated that they basically saw an aircraft they recognized and an aircraft that seemed to be not of this world. One of them was crashing, the other one was following it, almost as if to be assured that it crashed.
Wow.
Naturally, this scared the shit out of the folks around the lake, and after the plane crashed, the UFO just fucked off into the sky like mission accomplished. Bye. Sightings of UFOs over the lake have been seen for nearly 70 years since then. They were also seen prior to this, but they have been spotted more frequently and increasing in volume and frequency over the last 70 years. And this is the thing that's really crazy about Lake Baikal. It's not just UFOs that are being spotted, it's USOs.
What?
Unidentified swimming objects are
Oh,
also
okay.
seen in the world's deepest lake. Accounts vary between humanoid creatures being seen in the depths and crafts being seen stationary and moving about. I got some fucking crazy stories to tell you guys, all right? So UFOologist or ufologist or whatever the fuck they're called, they desperately need a better name, went to study this area for some time over the course of decades. And over that course of decades, they developed the theory that this plane crashed because it had flown over what was believed to be an underwater extraterrestrial base that sits at the bottom of Lake Baikal. The Russian military are known to run exercises and experiments at this lake as well. In 1982, there was some type of exercise that took place on the northern side of the lake. The folks around the lake saw the activity but didn't take serious note until they realized something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. According to the story, the divers were investigating, and obviously this could all be bullshit. A lot of these events did take place. There's official stories in place, and then a lot of times there was no story released. It was basically like, you didn't see anyone. It's like, no, we totally saw military. You guys were doing something huge over there. It's like, you didn't see anything. So, take this as you will, but just know that the sources are in abundance when it comes to these details matching up. Okay, so according to the story, the divers were investigating the bottom of the lake when they encountered something. What was described from the incident were 3-meter high or 9.5 feet tall humanoids that were under the water, not wearing scuba gear. They wore silver overalls and spherical helmets over their head. The divers were instructed to and attempted to capture one of these creatures with a net, but suddenly they felt themselves being pulled to the surface. They couldn't explain it. These divers had, and I've read like 3 accounts of this,
This is like terrifying.
These divers had 2 decompression devices, okay? They could each fit 4 people inside of them. I don't know what the fuck these things are. But one of them had become broken underwater, probably when they tried to catch this thing. One was usable and could only fit 4 people, so 4 were put into it. There were 7 divers in total. They surfaced very rapidly. Now, while I have not scuba dived or scuba doved, I don't know how to say it, in my life,
You're not supposed to go up fast.
I am aware that a sudden ascent from the depths can cause issues. I have a friend, this is a true story, who got the bends from testing his scuba gear in his swimming pool. It's something only Lee could pull off.
How?
I don't know, he's dumb. I don't know how you do it in 5 feet of water, but he did, so.
Okay.
That said, these divers were close to 150 feet deep when this took place. That rapid ascent caused much more damage than Lee and his 5 feet of water did. The divers, when they suddenly washed up on the shore of the beach, the 3 divers who were not able to be put into the decompression device had the air in their lungs expand too rapidly. Their lung tissue ruptured and air had entered their bloodstream, causing them to die. They died on the beach while they were being attended to by military medics. The 4 who did make it into the device had still begun the ascent when they were being put into this device, and they suffered serious injuries, all 4 becoming permanently disabled afterwards.
Wow.
This is 1982.
Oh my God.
Now, while this is all hearsay, like I mentioned, please understand that there are so many accounts on this lake and so many folks that talk about this brazenly now to the public, because most of the folks that were alive and threatening them at the time are no longer part of the government that exists there because the USSR has fallen. They still get told quite frequently to keep their fucking mouth shut when new stuff happens, though. So, according to the witnesses, they were told that it was an issue with rapid ascent that caused the scene to escalate. Some witnesses claimed that the divers were actually physically attacked. It wasn't the assault, that they had heard soldiers discussing the fact that the divers were attacked when they tried to net the creature, and the 3 deaths and 4 injuries were the result of trying to catch this 9.5 foot tall underwater creature wearing some weird ass scuba / spacesuit.
I mean, you've watched SpongeBob, right?
No, we've gone over this so many times.
Well, it's not like Sandy is a squirrel who lives under the sea, and she wears like this spacesuit with this helmet, this circular like helmet on. You know?
Same thing, exactly same thing.
That's just what I imagine.
Somehow these are all going to connect.
Yep, that's just what I imagine they're wearing. Like these aliens are just wearing this.
What's creepy is I have one picture. I have lots of pictures of this. I have one picture that shows an artist's depiction of what the story says they saw. Okay.
Okay.
I have another picture that I'll get to a little bit later that's a lot older that also looks very similar. And I'll mention that when I get to it. So it's not shocking that sightings of USOs and UFOs continued after incidents like this. Greenish triangles and yellow/red balls are often reported hovering above the lake. Another sighting at the lake details cigar-shaped crafts. This one took place on April 17th, 1987. A local resident named Valerie Rudenstoff gives her account and does so non-anonymously. So she uses her non-anonymously? She uses her name, whatever. So
okay.
There were 13, this is her, quote, there were 13 of us. At about 12:20 a.m., one of our guys went out into the yard. A few seconds later, he called out to us. He stood in the center of the yard and pointed his finger at the sky. Diagonally from his gesture, about 150 meters above us, hung a huge flying saucer. From the center of the plate went a phosphorescent purple ray. And at the edges of the plate were yellow portholes, almost like in our rural houses. So fucking windows. The diameter of the plate was 70 meters, 210 feet. We saw it so clearly for a long time, someone even suggested he throw a stone at it.
Wow.
The weather was amazingly quiet. No sound was heard from the hanging saucer, although behind us was the village of Kerma. There was the noise of a dog barking, the lowing of cows. We were spellbound. It was a full moon and the visibility was so clear that no one could doubt the reality of what we saw. And then the plate slid smoothly away, sailed along the shore of the bay, and further slipped into the hills of Olkin. Neither before nor after have I ever met such a thing. But since that time, it has been kind of a sacrilege to me not to believe in UFOs. My friend Alexander, a hunter, and his colleagues who live there for 20 years often see UFOs, and all is fine. He is still alive. So if to speak about glowing balls or cigars, we constantly see these on the shores of Lake Baikal. They exist.
That's
End
terrifying.
Quote. It's 1989. This was almost...
Oh my God.
Or no, I'm sorry, 1987. So this is super frequent when you look into the internet for this particular lake. I'm getting cold chills because I'm starting to think of what's going to come. Okay, I'm going to keep going. This tale was so notorious that they even ran a news segment on it in the 90s in Russia. Like in 1990, basically once the USSR had fallen, they're like, let's talk about this fucking crazy lake. Let's get this lady on camera, which they did. And sightings haven't slowed down. There were so many different accounts from towns around the lake regarding UFOs and sightings of beings that it's really disconcerting. You have sightings from folks that are just there to camp or see the lake because it's really beautiful, as one of the pictures on our Instagram/Facebook will show, that wind up overlapping their accounts, and they wind up being corroborated by other folks who are there in a more official capacity. And here's a really good example. A woman named Anna stated she saw something over the water she could not explain on the evening of July 9th, 2009. This is 12 years ago, around 10 p.m. Quote, we were standing with tents on the beach, and at night we saw orange-red flashes as if a huge fire. At the same time, a man named Sergei Konachinka, I think I said that right, also saw something. Sergei happens to be the chairman of the Union of Photographers of Buryatia, a really large region of eastern Siberia that butts up against the lake. If you're thinking of like this region, think of it kind of like a state within our country. And when I say that it's large, the area this region covers would make it the 5th largest state in the United States. So it's not like a little town and he just happens to be like the chairman of this Union of Photographers. He's the chairman of the Union of Photographers for this huge fucking region, okay? He stated, quote, my son and I went out to the balcony to see the last of the waning sunset. Suddenly there appeared to be 2 glowing points and they hovered over the water. And he did what any chairman of a union of photographers would do. He took pictures of the orbs,
wow,
which will be on our Instagram. They rose up, they moved, and they seemed to rebase somewhere else in or on the lake. And these were the, like, orbs of flame that Anna had seen. So 2 different perspectives, 2 completely different people there for different reasons, and they both see the same thing. So for as many stories about UFOs that folks see in the sky, there are also people with USO stories. So unidentified swimming or submerged is how I like to think of them objects. A man named something I can't pronounce. It's a very long name. I don't want to disgrace it, so we're just going to call him V, which is ironic because later on there's a bunch of other stories where people just use their first initial too.
Oh, really?
Well, we're going to call him V. He's a rescuer for the lake, so he's like emergency services.
Gotcha.
In case something goes wrong. He states that odd things are seen beneath the water's surface all the time, but one specific incident in particular sticks with him.
It's where the kaiju come from.
Yeah, dude, okay, just wait.
Okay.
So,
oh my God.
Quote, we were on a yacht on Lake Baikal, and from under us flew out a huge glowing disc. It blinded us, and for a second flew into the sky. We did not even have time to grab any cameras nor take video, although many of us saw it. It was huge and lit up all of our yacht. In diameter, it was probably 500 to 700 meters, a huge disc, so around 2,100 feet across. For 3 minutes, it shone from below the surface. This thing lit up under the water like War of the fucking Worlds.
Wow.
And then abruptly departed in a second. The spectacle was huge, awesome, beautiful, and shocking. So, one of the creepiest ones I found comes from 1977. And this one was like recently declassified. 2 researchers took a submersible, and their goal was to explore the depths of the lake to see what was down there. At a depth of around 4,000 feet, so around 1,200 feet away from the bottom, they decided they had 2 spotlights on their submersible, okay? They decided they were going to turn off their spotlights to see what was observable at that depth, if anything. When they did, they realized immediately that their submersible was surrounded in a sort of, quote, glow. When I heard this, I thought they probably went through something that was bioluminescent, and when they traveled through it, they collected like algae or whatever. I don't fucking know, but there had to be some sort of like rational explanation for why their craft was glowing. And then I found their detailed account where they gave actual testimony on what it was. And this is it. Quote, "It was so like if our device was lit from above and the side by 2 strong spotlights."
Wow.
So they're underwater, 4,000 feet underwater. They have 2 strong spotlights on their craft. Only a minute later until floodlights went out and we found ourselves in total darkness. So the idea is you go down into the darkness of the depths to observe, and when you decide to turn off your own light, you realize in that moment you are being observed by something that is bigger than you. That is absolutely terrifying to me.
Wow.
And while you're down there realizing you don't know where these lights are coming from, but they're pointed at your craft, something is looking at you 4,000 feet under the surface of the lake, then to have those lights just go out, and you're in total fucking darkness under the water, and all you know is that you're down there with something else that you can't see but can almost certainly see you, is absolute nightmare fuel for me.
Oh man, the fact that this lake is clear and you can see through it, that's kind of what freaks me out.
But the further down you get, the darker it gets, you know? It's super clear up top, which is why you can see stuff the closer it gets to the surface. Mm-hmm. But the further down you get, they're like, light's not going to get down that far.
Yeah.
And that's where all these things are supposed to be. So one of the researchers on the event states that ancient petroglyphs from nearby regions depict what has been seen in Lake Baikal too accurately to be a coincidence. There are over 200 drawings on different cave walls and various formations that look just like the fucking picture
Shut up.
of the dudes in the silver suits with the helmets. It's fucking cave drawings that look like a person's head inside a fucking bubble.
Wow.
It's so fucking creepy, dude. And the region apparently has hundreds of these, like I mentioned. What's really interesting is the Russian news organizations picked up this story and compiled a bunch of sightings in 2015 because there was a rumor that Steven Spielberg was going to be making a documentary on the lake and the sightings because it's so interesting and, of course, terrifying. This is where shit got really fucking creepy for me, okay? So, this article online states that it turned out to be a hoax. Steven Spielberg's not making a movie there, all right? And if you Google Steven Spielberg Lake Baikal, you can't find fucking anything about him going, all right? And it's really, really annoying. And I was trying to go through and I just wrote down like, oh, I'm going to message Steven Spielberg, be like, give me some money. I'll go do it for you. And then I kept digging and Googling and deep Googling. And then I found
Did you get to the dark web?
one article. That's all there is to find. One article that talks about Steven Spielberg's experience when he came to the lake a year later in 2016, because he actually fucking went. No documentary was made. Nowhere on the internet can you find it except the documentary company from Russia he was working with, Soar TV. Okay, he was searching the lake for signs of these specific creatures. The article states that during the dive, he had his own submersibles so he could get to the bottom of the lake, and Spielberg found it impossible to go through the last 200 meters at the bottom of the lake. They were diving down there and had all these fucking lights. They were going to see what the bottom of the lake looked like, okay? The silt at the bottom of the lake, the fine sand, clay, / whatever that's at the bottom of lakes, it suddenly kicked up in massive amounts, 200 meters, 600 feet from the bottom of this lake, where it was impossible to see through. So the bottom 600 feet suddenly had zero visibility. You would have no idea when you were going to get to the bottom. You would crash into something at the bottom, and you would not be able to see what's in front of you. It was so bad they had to abandon the attempt and just return to the surface. When he got to his boat and asked what had happened, his team that was monitoring the lake on all different types of activity told him that the closer he got to the bottom, they noticed some seismic activity. When he was 200 meters from the bottom, there was an earthquake.
Shut
And that's what had stirred up all of the silt at the bottom. The researchers that were local and they were helping with this event advised him that the underwater people did not want to be seen. They basically told him, like, they did this. They don't want you to see them. You should probably stop. You can't find this shit on the internet anywhere but the website, SOAR TV. You can find this one article. Nowhere else references it. And I fucking Googled hard, y'all. Like, I was looking everywhere for Spielberg, underwater documentary, all of this shit. Couldn't find it except on this one site, and it's a paragraph where they talk about, like, yeah, these things exist under there. Like, they wouldn't let Spielberg look into them either.
Wow.
It's so fucking creepy. Then I found more.
Oh, man.
So I was like, well, what's recently in the news for Lake Baikal? Okay. So what's recently been in the news is that satellites over the area have spotted something really weird in the winter when the lake freezes. So think of when you see an air bubble escape underwater, you know? It doesn't come up as like an orb. It comes up as like a ring, you know?
Yeah.
So when you think of that and you think of the idea that there's an underwater base that everyone's trying to hide, this makes this extra creepy. A satellite picked up an ice ring that's 2 miles long on Lake Baikal.
2 miles is a lot.
The name is misleading. It is not a ring of ice. What an ice ring in this case is that there's a complete flat sheet of ice that has a really thin ring of ice that's a perfect ring on an otherwise solid sheet. That ring's diameter is over 2 miles long. I started researching how frequently these happen in nature, okay? Ice rings can be found where it's like a literal ring of ice because that particular part of the lake is stagnant. There's not a current, all right?
Yeah.
And so that ring forms almost like a perfect ring of ice. There's no other place that I've found in the world after researching for 45 minutes on Google, granted. Not only is this only happening here, it happens here frequently. They usually are 3 to 4 miles in diameter. It only happens on Lake Baikal. The locals state that it's a ring that's forming because there are vents in the underwater base that are heating up the water. And as the air is moving to the surface, it moves up in the ring formation and the base is enormous. So the rings come up in these massive 2 to 4 mile diameter bubbles, basically. And what's really crazy to me is that this has been happening here for decades. So when this hit the internet, people saw it, they're like, that's super fucking weird and it doesn't happen anywhere else. Why is it happening there? Everyone got super suspicious, all right? They've called it a mystery for decades. But as soon as it hits the interwebs and people from outside start asking questions, almost immediately, like 3 days later, scientists had started posting articles locally about how they found a source and like mysterious ice rings explained is the type of shit you started seeing pop up. And the explanation is they found warm underwater currents. That's it. Warm underwater currents are what caused this to happen only at this lake. Not sure how the currents are formed, not sure why, but they state that they're not sure why it's happening only here, not sure why they're happening in such large areas, but they're stating basically that it's like one current that goes in a circle, okay? Mm-hmm. That's 2 to 4 degrees hotter than the rest of the lake in Fahrenheit, which is so much hotter geologically, like speaking. That doesn't make a lot of sense for that to happen in like that specific ring, and that the outside of the current is moving a lot faster than the inside, which is why the outside ring is the only part that's like starting to melt the ice, in some cases breaking through.
All right.
What's super annoying is that seems like science that they should have been able to talk about for the last few decades.
Yeah.
But every time this was noticed by anyone that's from the region who was flying over or just noticed it from the shore, they were told, shut the fuck up. They were not only told, shut the fuck up, they were told that it was a hoax for the longest time. They equated it to crop circles. They started having fucking festivals where they'd have people go out in the ice and create circle art, where they draw the biggest amount of circles that they could and all this other bullshit to basically say like, hey, this doesn't really happen. Then a fucking photo from a satellite comes out. Everyone's like, fucking 2 miles in diameter. You can't tell us we're wrong anymore. And then they're like, we dropped some probes into the water. It's 2 to 4 degrees hotter. It's naturally occurring. We're sure. We don't know how though. And they fucking post it online like mystery solved. Stop talking about it. And it's just so fucking bizarre that this shit keeps happening with this one specific lake. I think what it really comes down to is this whole thing, this whole scenario just seems sus AF. It really does. To have all these different things happen, to basically have people threatened and told to keep their mouths shut. And then as things start to unfold under a different regime, it just keeps happening. People keep talking about it. Weirder things keep happening. And now there's more and more substantial evidence. And when those substantial pieces of evidence show up, they're either called hoaxes, or if they're indisputable, they're called explainable by science. We don't exactly know how, though. And it just seems very, very odd. So what's really happening under the water of Lake Baikal? Who knows, man? It could be nothing. This could all be BS. It could be everything. It could be underwater creatures, an extraterrestrial base with aliens, a super big Loch Ness monster kaiju farting, and those rings are what come to the surface. There is no way for me to tell from my desk. But the overwhelming amount of sightings and odd behavior make this one super suspicious and something definitely worth paying attention to. And hopefully I don't have any more visions that cause uncontrollable peeing. So
Wow.
That, my spooky friends, is the mystery of Lake Baikal.
Nice. I know there's a place that it doesn't have the melting thing that you're talking about that exists, but there's an area somewhere up north where all the methane in the water below like starts coming up, and so it's the lake area is just, you see all these frozen bubbles everywhere.
Yeah, the bubbles are super cool. I've seen those, and you can like stab bubbles that are just pure oxygen.
Oh, and set them on fire.
And set them on fire. That's super cool too. I was looking up all these different phenomena that happen with freezing water. Sometimes like ripples freeze. They don't know exactly why, and it's just that the lake was active or it was windy, and it just dropped in temperature really quickly. So what you have is like a lake that has like waves on it that's frozen.
Yeah.
And then like circular pieces of ice, but they're solid pieces of ice, while the other like water around it is still flowing. Like those happen a lot. But
that's weird.
I was looking for like thin ice circles all over, and I found like 60 articles that linked back just to that one lake.
Wow, that's terrifying.
And the other thing too is a lot of articles still call it unexplained unless you're reading articles from like local scientists, in which case they're claiming that it's 100% solved. And I was like, this is just super fucking suspicious, man. Like, just say it's an alien base and we can't go down there because they killed people last time.
Wow.
Like, that's all you gotta say. But I don't know.
Maybe they worked out a deal with them.
There are a lot of articles online nowadays from very credible people that state that extraterrestrials exist. They have not only been in contact with us, but they have deals with the governments of the world to keep their existence secret. There was some guy who was like director of NASA and all this other shit, and he flat out stated like, yeah, there's an agreement to keep space demilitarized, and then President Trump, when he announced the Space Force, like he was originally going to announce the existence of them, but like a bunch of the other leaders told him you absolutely can't do that. And the thing about him is that this person that was saying all this that sounds batshit crazy is one of the most credible people out there. And when he said it, everyone was just like, ooh, like, shut the fuck up. Like, please stop talking right now.
Credible, like, he thinks that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin were possessed by demons?
No, I mean, like, actually credible, but...
Okay.
I mean, that's not that far-fetched. Two, like, horrible human beings that existed that perpetrated crimes against humanity on an unfathomable scale to be said, like, yeah, they seem like they're possessed. Absolutely, they do. So, that also reminds me of the exorcism of Emily Rose when they say that she's possessed by seven demons. She says that. And then she speaks in Latin, says, I'm the one who dwelt within, and then names off historical figures that were all evil, like Hitler or Nero.
My God.
Like, that's from the exorcism of Emily Rose. So that's not an original thing to say, like, they thought an evil person that was a world leader or someone that was just perpetrating atrocities was possessed by the devil or someone else.
Legit. Solid point.
This is just a crazy fucking episode, everyone.
Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed it. It's been very long as well.
It's a long episode. It is now 4:30 a.m.
I will say this. When I was researching Lake Baikal, I was like, this is really creepy. Because I left out so many stories about people talking about UFO sightings or USO sightings. Because my script was getting long. And I was like, I'm going to wrap this up. And then when I found the Steven Spielberg shit, I was like, I don't know how. I mean, I know you can scrub stuff off the internet when when a celebrity who's really famous says something really bad.
Yeah.
That shit will get scrubbed off the internet. But I was like, this seems like this has been scrubbed off the internet. And it's not like a director would take off some project that just didn't go through, you know?
Yeah.
but everything, there's nothing about him traveling there except the articles that say it was a hoax. And then there's this one that's like, yeah, he came and this thing happened that wouldn't let him see it. And I was like, it's the only spot I could find it. I was like, this is so fucking creepy. All right, so that's everything we have for episode 173. Thank you so much for listening. If anyone has a story they would like to share with us, you can email storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. You can also hit us up on any of our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod. Instagram is @scarishpodcast. We also do Pasta Times, which are episodes where we read fictional horror stories that we have found on the internet, whether it be creepypastas or SCPs. If you have one you would like to recommend, or if you have your own that you would like to send us, please email pastatime@scarish.com. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/scaryish podcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1, and at $1, you get ad-free episodes. Who doesn't love ad-free episodes? And there are other tiers as well that include physical stuff, like physical merch. You know what I mean?
Over the pants stuff only.
Shut
Don't
up.
get excited,
Oh
folks.
my God. And if you're not into the whole monthly tier thing, you can also go to coffeeko-fi.com/scaryish podcast, and those are one-time donations. All your donations go to upgrading our studio setup, kind of letting us keep on doing what we're doing. We upgraded our mics recently. We got new cameras for our new live stream setup, which is awesome. And yeah, we keep doing this because of you folks. So yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you to everyone who listens, watches, supports us in any way, shape, or form. We appreciate it. We feel it. We see you. Thank you so much. And that's just about everything. So Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on. I'm going to go keep on sleeping on.
Okay. Bye.